Gotta get like sorted.
Just show it to me on your computer. Yeah.
People in the UK like to sort things, huh?
Oh yeah.
Is it sorted?
Oh, we're ready.
Yeah. Oh,
We're live right
yeah,
now.
Sorry, sorted.
It's crazy. We'll take the UK lingo conversation.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Should we intro?
Absolutely,
Let's do this
brother.
thing.
Let's do a little introduction.
Everybody, I am Mike Veona here from Rosehill Sourdough, and this guy honestly doesn't need an introduction. Look at his pretty face, beautiful.
Wow, man.
This is my guy, Artisan Brian over here.
You're flattering. Hello, brother. Good to see you. Hey,
yourself.
guys, I'm Brian. I am a baker. I'm from Miami. I've got a blog that maybe you've seen or used before. But I'm here, thrilled today to be with Mike and talk about sourdough and pizza, two things that we both love.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're here in beautiful Edinburgh.
Edinburgh.
How you
I learned
doing
how to
with that?
pronounce Edinburgh. I used to say Edinburgh.
I said Edinburgh
until
too.
about an hour ago, and it's Edinburgh.
That's how it's spelled.
Absolutely beautiful. It's great to be here across the pond. You know what I'm saying?
I'm loving it.
To eat pizza again.
I've been here about a month, so I joined Ooni about a month ago, full time, and I'm loving it so far. It's been an amazing experience. It's just crazy that this is my life now. I get to do live broadcasts with freaking Artisan Brian. This is nuts.
This is well, it's not your life. Like we're not gonna do this every day.
It's crazy.
It's part
Brian's
of your.
moving here. Can we break that news off? Is that cool?
Oh,
Is
sure.
your wife
She's probably watching. The news is official.
Right on. Cool. So yeah, we're talking about sourdough today.
Yeah. Honestly, what are your? How should we start? Like, why do you make sourdough bread pizza? Like, how
Such
did
a
you
good
start
question.
doing that?
So I started doing pizza a long time ago. Honestly, it was like a way for me to feed my roommates and like my girlfriend when I was broke in college. Like honestly, that's how it started. It was like going down to the grocery store, buying some dough, going to Home Depot and buying like these terracotta tiles for like $1, and that was my pizza stone. It was just like Anyway,
For real?
that was literally how I started. Was just going and buying this pizza. Anyway, so I started making pizza, and then I just got better at it. And then I went to Italy and took a pizza class in Florence. Fell in love with pizza culture when I was traveling through Italy. And then like 2.5 years ago, I switched everything over to sourdough. I just started doing some more research on it.
Yeah.
And it's like, to me, it's just like the purest form of bread.
Yeah. So what do you mean? Like, because I kind of went through the same thing, but like in your eyes, what does that mean when you switch to sourdough? What exactly are you saying?
Yeah, so like I went from rushing a process that's been proven over thousands of years. Like, how do you make bread? It's not with a packet of instant dry yeast.
Right.
Like that was such a revelation to me. It's like bread's been made for thousands of years a certain way.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden we have some technological advance and we think, oh, all we need to do now is just rip it open a packet of yeast, throw in some flour, mix in some water, and boom, we've got good bread.
Right. So now with sourdough, we're naturally fermenting the flour and water.
Exactly.
I went through the same thing. I started making bread when I was a kid to feed people. It's the same. I feel like most bakers ultimately are trying to feed people.
Absolutely.
That's like why we bake or make pizza and stuff like that. So obviously I wasn't making sourdough when I was 12. I was just using instant yeast. And I kind of went through that progression where at some point I was like, whoa, I started seeing some people online doing amazing things with sourdough, and I was like, wait, I didn't realize you could bake a different way.
Yeah.
And once you open that door, I started with bread and baguettes and all that stuff. Then you get into pizza. You open that door with pizza, and the possibilities are just endless.
Yeah, I'm with you. It's crazy too, because growing up, sourdough to me, I grew up in California, and so sourdough is this kind of weird sour bread from San Francisco.
Right.
But even that, you had a post the other day calling out like a grocery store for calling out sourdough bread.
Oh, yeah, I did.
Yeah.
Well, it's just that I was walking in the store and I saw, I don't know what it was, some bread.
Like sourdough baguette.
Well, yeah, it said sourdough French bread.
Yeah.
On the sign.
Yeah.
And it cost like $1, and so I just I picked it up. The ingredients list was entirely too long.
Yeah.
And not to get into that whole thing, but it's there's a misconception of what can and cannot be sourdough.
Sure.
And I mean, I'm not against yeast, instant yeast or fresh yeast. I use it actually at work when I make baguettes sometimes or a poolish.
Yeah.
There are
We'll
different ways.
Polish,
Yeah,
so we'll
there are different ways to use instant yeast. You don't just have to throw it into your mix. You can let that ferment overnight, right, and then make a different mix with it. So I don't have a problem using fresh yeast or instant yeast, but when people use terminology that's not correct, I think we just need to direct them to the right education about it, instead of like, judging. It's just,
Absolutely.
they're going to say sourdough baguette, but it's really like instant yeast with a bunch of added acids
Dude,
into
it's crazy.
it.
It's
like,
crazy.
come on, guys. Like, and no, but the problem is if a grocery store sells that, then consumers who don't know good bread, they're going to buy it and eat it, and they're going to say, man, I don't like sourdough. That was pretty bad. Without really having tasted actual naturally leavened bread. And so then that makes our job harder.
I know.
Right? Because
Seriously.
we're trying to get more people to eat healthier bread or healthier pizza. But what they're getting in the stores is not what it should be.
I've had so many customers come to me when I was running my pizza pop-up going, oh, it's sourdough pizza? And I was like, stop, throw that misconception out the window. Like, stop thinking of it as sourdough as this like extra tangy bread. It's like when you make sourdough, depending on fermentation time and temperature, it doesn't have to be tangy at all. It's just completely naturally fermented.
Well, I mean, the thing is, you can get that flavor when you use a sourdough starter. You can get that acidic, strong flavor. And I work for a pizzeria. I'm the head baker for an Italian restaurant group in Miami right now.
Super humble brag.
And
super humble brag.
And with
MBD.
Hey man, from home baker to head baker, guys, it can happen.
It can
happen in like 6 months.
Yeah, it's crazy.
No, but so a lot of people when they're eating pizza, they don't actually like to taste that that fermentation flavor. So it can be kind of I don't want to say controversial thing, but I work with a lot of Italians as well. If you make a pizza and it's naturally leavened, but it's got that kind of sour kick to it, some people might not like that just because it's not true to that traditional flavor their dough carries. Doesn't mean there's anything wrong with it though. You know what I mean? Like
absolutely.
you have to balance like what does the market of people want to actually taste when they're getting a pizza? There's some people that are purists, like people in Naples, like you'll watch these TV shows where they travel. And some Italian guys are like, yo, no, it can't. If you taste the fermentation, it's not good. So again, it makes our job harder when we're trying to make sourdough pizza. The first thing people, they'll be like, yo, but I don't want it to taste sour. And it can happen. I can't guarantee. Sometimes I make bread and I'm like, I can't guarantee it's not gonna be sour. Honestly, it has a mind of its own. I let it go and then I bake it. And hopefully it's delicious.
Let's get into the mind of its own thing, because that's like, it's so true. Like we talk about sourdough in general as this like class of bread, but sourdough, what it really is a culture of microorganisms. It's bacteria and it's yeast. And it kind of gets into one of our first questions we pinged the community about. People were just like, what is sourdough? Like, what is a sourdough starter? Right? So like for me, I call my starter a culture. We were talking about this earlier. It's like a little nerdier term. But people, name them off with me. Like people call them starters, cultures, mothers, leavens. Like what else people call these things?
Man, I don't know. I think you named
pretty much all of them, right?
I call mine a starter.
Mother dough.
Other dough, mother dough, grandmother if it's really old. But I call mine basically a sourdough starter. And essentially, when I got into it, I wasn't really thinking too scientifically. I just wanted, I just mixed flour with water and just put it on my countertop. And I wasn't really thinking about the microorganisms. And, I still, the science behind it's not really my forte. I'm not going to lie about that. I have a lot to learn in that regard. And I think that you have more of that. Obviously, you're an engineer, so you've got that scientific mind.
That's what I appreciate about it, though. Like when I started it, it was this like experimentation of like, I'd done some research. I just had a friend who got diagnosed with some this like form of arthritis. Basically, she would eat bread and her joints would swell up and stuff. And her doctor was like, oh, no more bread, which meant I couldn't make her pizza anymore. And so I was like, I did this research on sourdough. I was like, well, if I make sourdough, I've heard that maybe that could help, naturally fermented sourdough. And sure enough, she could eat my bread and pizza, no problem. And it's that, so I got into it because of the science. Like, what is different about this bread with these microorganisms, with this lactic acid bacteria? Like, what's making this, what's different? But I did the same thing as you. I took some flour and water and stirred it up, and put it on my counter.
I was just trying to,
And what do we got? This is
let's do it.
So this is my starter. This is the Rosehill sourdough starter. I named her Lucille.
Hold on, can we take a moment, guys? This is the Rosehill sourdough.
That's her. Smells good, right?
Rosehill sourdough. I'm so glad to be able to smell. I'm not.
Take it. Eat it.
Oh my God.
It's good, right?
Thank you, brother.
You're welcome.
Anyway,
people are gonna be like, he just ate. Like, you can do that. Like, it's okay. If you get some doughy sourdough, like, it's all right. If it's a little wet, it's a little doughy. Like, that's just
I encourage people to taste it not on some weird, like, pretentious thing, like it's like tasting wine and all that kind of stuff. I encourage you to taste it just so you get more familiar with like what is it? You know what I mean? It's a living thing. It's like kind of an organism. So taste it, embrace it, smell it. You know what I'm saying? Touch it and stuff like that.
Absolutely. So my sourdough, it does smell good. I fed this morning. It smells really good. My sourdough is a half mix of bread flour and whole wheat flour. And I know you've got some different ones that you feed too.
Yeah. Well, do you want to get to this question?
Yeah.
Should we? So it looks like Pip is asking, hello, Pip.
Yeah.
How's it going?
How's it going?
Pip is asking, how do you use a starter and how does it work?
How does it work is kind of
a
loaded question.
And so like, I know you just asked me about what mix I did, so I can kind of try to wrap that into the answer to this. So how do you use a starter? It is definitely that's definitely a question that has many answers, but essentially when you create one, by mixing flour and water together over the course of like a week, you do some regular feedings, it'll start to rise and fall, okay? Once it gets to the point where you understand when it's going to rise and when it's going to fall, you'll learn when to make dough with it, okay? That's basically like the first thing you got to start to understand. So once you got that down, you got a healthy starter, and it's at this peak. You know, sometimes you can put a little rubber band here when you feed it, and then you can see how much it's grown past that rubber band, okay? Once it's at that peak and you're comfortable with it, you can take some of it, okay? You put it in a bowl, basically another bowl with flour and water. You mix it together, and at some point you add some salt to it, and then you add some more water a little bit, you know, and you continue to mix it. You can stretch it. And so you've basically done your mix. It's a very simple thing to do in a nutshell. And then after you let it ferment for a long period of time, you can let it ferment in a warm environment, for 3 or 4 hours, and then you can toss it in the fridge for 8 to 12 hours to 18 hours. Okay, whether this is bread or pizza, whatever dough you're making, you kind of do the same thing. And then after that cold period of proofing, or an all warm proof, you can shape it into a ball, or you can shape it into a baguette, or you can shape it into whatever. You can throw sesame seeds on it, and then you put it into an oven. And then you take it out of the oven. And then you eat it.
No, but that's the beauty of it. Like, people get so intimidated by like these recipes, and fair enough. When I got into it, you're reading these recipes and you're like, 70% what and 4% what, and you start. But like, honestly, what I tell people when I'm trying to teach them how to use sourdough is like, just try it. Like, nature's gonna win.
Nature's gonna win.
Yeah, like if you mix flour and water and some of that and some salt, and you make what kind of looks like a ball, and you let it sit for a little bit, and you put it in a hot oven.
That's what I'm talking about there.
Like, it's gonna make bread, and you're gonna be stoked that you made bread.
And it's gonna be naturally delicious.
Yeah, absolutely.
Why don't you tackle that one? Because I think that you could.
Ooh, question from the Ooni community group on Facebook. I love this. What are the benefits of using sourdough? So sourdough, to me, like I said, is like this most pure form of making bread, pizza, whatever bread product, right? Like, it's proven. Ancient Egyptians, some people theorize that basically they had this like porridge they made out of like their wheat and water, and they kind of let it sit in the corner, and they saw some bubbles, and it became this magical thing. Dionysus.
I read that they like forgot about it. Someone was walking through like, oh snap, forgot about that porridge.
Yeah, exactly.
He was about to eat his porridge. He was like, this don't look right.
Yeah, and people didn't understand it. Like, Dionysus, I think, was like the Greek or Roman god. Sorry, I don't know my mythology of fermentation. Like it was seen as cold fire, like this understanding of like how you cook things without heat. Right. And so for me, it's like this pure way of making bread. And when you use it in the right way, when you're making bread with it and you let things naturally ferment and sit, a couple things are happening that don't happen in bread products. Like that bread product you saw, the sourdough French baguette, right? When you just use active dry yeast, again, not knocking active dry yeast, has its place. But that's one part of bread making. Correct. Sourdough, you enter in a second part, which is the bacteria part.
Correct.
And the bacteria part's super, super important. So it's lactic acid bacteria, LAB people call it. And lactic acid bacteria in sourdough is what makes sourdough sour. That's where it gets its name. So it's bacteria that's actually eating the structure of the dough. It's eating the sugars in the dough. It's creating lactic acid, right? And acetic acid. It's what's in vinegar, right? It's just like that flavor. That's where that's coming from. So when you make sourdough, the benefits of that, I find there's health benefits to it. I've had many people when I was running my pizza pop-up with health issues come up to me. I had a lady in tears give me a big hug one day who told her doctor had told her she would never be able to have bread or pizza again. She's in tears because she was able to eat a piece of my pizza and not immediately break out.
Right.
Because I don't know, it's cold fire, it's magic. Like it really is. Like
it's that Rosehill sourdough.
Yeah. So what's the benefit of it? I mean, the benefit to me, besides like a structural benefit, like we can get into all kinds of stuff in natural fermentation and bread structure and crumb and all this stuff.
Yeah.
But to me, from pure like science point of it, it's just this black magic I don't understand.
I think that look, it makes gluten easily digestible.
Yeah, that's
That's what you know. At the end of the day, I know it when I eat it compared to other yeasted products. You can add, you know, if you have a sourdough starter that you're not managing properly, or you're unsure if you're managing.
I have some of that.
Yeah,
we can get into
some of that.
Yeah.
All right, so we have this starter here that's kind of built this little film on top. It's looking, it smells delicious actually.
This sounds really good.
It smells really good.
This sounds really good.
So
that's Nona. That's the 170-year-old stuff.
Actually, you know what, man? Let's we need to get into the whole age of the starter thing at some point.
This is going to be a long video. You guys are right. We got catering coming.
Hold on.
We got craft services coming.
If you have a starter that you haven't maintained properly, okay, so you've got this pre-fermented flour. You can, you know, obviously it's not dead. You can revive it. You give it a couple of feedings, and even if it stays dead for a little bit, you can use it in things to help with the fermentation. In like if you're making pasta, you know, I wouldn't say, hey, I'm making sourdough pasta like that. It's a little much, right? It's not a leavened product. But what does that mean? It means that you're taking some pre-fermented gluten and you're putting it into something to aid the digestion of what you're about to eat. That, you know, that's a benefit. It's not, you know, so it can be seen as kind of like a gimmick or marketing type thing or gimmicky, like, oh, it's like sourdough pancakes. Like, why would someone say that? Well, it's just using the word sourdough
waffles and stuff.
But no, it's not. We're not trying to benefit from saying the word sourdough. What we're saying is we're using pre-fermented flour in things to make them a little bit healthier, a little bit better for you to digest, make you feel better. You have a big brunch with like a stack of pancakes. You know, you've got that sourdough culture in there to kind of help you not feel too bad. So that
honestly, you know, works. I'm telling you.
Anyway, so yeah, this is kind of a starter that's a little bit dead.
Yeah. But it's not dead though.
It's a little bit dead. It's a little bit dead. You just gotta revive
it's not dead.
No,
it's sad. It's not dead.
It's not dead.
In science terms, it's dormant.
It's dormant. Okay. You bring the science back in. I've let some starters sit for like a month, and they turn like
that
black.
Yeah.
They turn and I revive them.
You can
after like but there, you know, there's no point in even doing that. Actually, you can make a new starter in 4 days.
Yeah.
But to revive one, sometimes it's like you're like feeding it for a week, and you're like, oh my God, is it gonna? It's like
just
throw it away, make
a
a new one.
Yeah.
Throw it away, make a new one. So Rebecca wants to know, what's up, Rebecca? How's it going? Where can you get sourdough starter? Do you make it from scratch? Where can you get sourdough starter? I believe you can order or get sourdough starter from this guy, Rosehill Sourdough. I think it's $5. I think he ships anywhere in the continental U.S. No, I'm just kidding.
I actually used to do that.
Yeah, I know. That's what I was. I've seen at like, is there Whole Foods here?
No, there's no Whole Foods equivalent.
Okay, like Whole Foods.
There is a Whole Foods. Oh, there is in London. Yeah.
In London.
I've learned that's.
I've seen at like.
Did I say that right?
Posh. These kinds of grocery stores tend to. I've seen before like a packaged sourdough starter.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess you can buy them. I guess you can, I think there's I think there are people that sell sourdough starter. I mean,
you absolutely can. I sold them for a long time.
Yeah, I don't see the problem with that. I mean, I think spreading the love is part of the community. But the other part of your question, Rebecca, is do you make it from scratch? And so I would, obviously, I do. I believe.
Yeah, I made mine. I made besides my 170-year-old one. Yes, I made one from scratch.
The 170-year-old one, huh?
It honestly is 1849.
So before I answer, do I make it from scratch? We got to like. Do you think age makes a difference?
Absolutely, I do.
Do you think it makes a difference?
It's crazy. It's crazy.
So I have to say, I don't believe it.
Have you used something that old though?
I don't know. No, I haven't used something.
So like I've noticed a difference just between like week 2 and like year 2.
Okay.
Like a difference, but in terms of how strong, I call her Nona.
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 Oh.
My other one's Lucille. And then Nona is 170 years old. Lucille's about 2.5 years old. You can just tell, like, when I don't feed, if I neglect Nona or whatever, and she's in the back of the fridge, and I pull her out and I kind of pour off, that's grain alcohol. That's all it is on top, ethanol. Just pour that off. Take the little top layer off. That's just all dead, really dormant yeast and bacteria.
Really dormant.
Just throw that off. All you need is the tiniest bit. You just need the tiniest bit to start. Little flour and water, and it just goes up. And Nona doubles. Like we talked about how much it rises.
Yeah.
And usually you look for like 2x or 3x rise. And Nona, like, in one feeding is back to 2x.
All right.
2 feedings back to 3x.
I'm not going to knock it till I try, but, hey, I'll have to see. I'll have to give it a try.
Yeah, so, but yes, Rebecca, to answer your question.
We do make ours from scratch.
Yeah, make it from scratch. And it's fun.
It's fun.
What's the risk?
It gives you a little baby to take care of. It gives you a connection. And if you're really interested in sourdough, I would say the best way to go about it is to make it yourself.
Absolutely. All right, so a question from the community group. How is making sourdough pizza different from other types of pizza dough? You want to start here?
Why, you scared?
No.
You scared to answer
no,
that?
not at all.
What happened? Nah.
So, I mean,
what's
no,
up?
Go for it. I've been
What's
talking
up,
a lot.
Ooni community group. How are you guys doing?
Yeah.
Oh, the question, what was the question? The question went away.
Difference between sourdough pizza
yes.
and other ways of making pizza.
Other ways of making pizza. It depends on what type of pizza you're trying to make. There's many different types of pizza, right? So you have Roman style pizza, pan pizza, deep dish, Detroit.
Yeah.
But most commonly, I'll make a Napoleon style pizza, pizza Napoletana, where you have a pizza crust that's a little bit thicker. You want it wood fired. It's a little bit soft in the middle. That's typically you would use fresh yeast. You would mix the dough. You would knead it. You might not need to work it that much because that yeast really softens up your dough, and it strengthens that gluten.
Yeah.
So you kind of mix it. You might let it ferment for a while. You might put it straight in the fridge. But with that fresh yeast, you're kind of confident that it's going to grow. It's going to work. Sourdough is very different. Using a sourdough starter to bake is different because you have to make sure that you get a nice kickstart to your fermentation. You have to make sure that the temperature and all these variables are working. You also have to work your dough a little bit more because you don't have that kickstart of fresh yeast to soften it up and strengthen it. So when I mix with my sourdough starter, I'm usually kneading for a good while. I also like to make the dough a little bit drier than usual, so I'll make my starter kind of stiff, which means I don't put that much water in the sourdough starter. So yeah, I mean, I'll work the dough a little bit more. I'll knead it by hand, and I'll give it a nice bulk fermentation so that I know that it's alive and well. The thing about using sourdough is sometimes when you bake, you might see a result that looks sad. You might bake a loaf of bread and it comes out like this tall.
True.
And there's no way to go through your process and know what went wrong. Was my starter wrong? Was the fermentation wrong? Was the proof not long enough? Was the bulk not long enough? You won't really know. But a good way to ensure success is to know you got a good fermentation. And so with sourdough, I like to kind of let it bulk and let it proof for a long time to know I've got the strength. So that when I fire the pizza off in the oven, I get that good rise.
Yeah. I mean, we got some pizza. We might as well start making pizza too. That's kind of part of this.
Yeah,
chat.
bring some pizza over and.
So this is. I mean, I already stretched it because I was checking it earlier. Sorry, babe, I'm taking my wedding ring off. I still love you.
We should probably reflour this.
Yes,
so
this guy's he's getting stuck.
So tip 101: when you're launching pizza, don't let it sit on the peel for too long.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we're gonna move that there.
Clean peel. So actually the opposite. When I make my sourdough pizza, I actually don't knead it.
Oh, nice.
I do folds.
Oh, you give it folds.
Yeah.
Like making bread.
Exactly.
That's cool. Interesting.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I treat my pizza. I say pizza starts with good bread, so I treat my pizza just like I treat my bread. So I'm doing about a 63%. Basically, don't worry about that. It's just water to flour. I guess I shouldn't say don't worry about that. People want to know about.
They want to know, Mike. They want to know. Tell them.
So 63%. Anytime you see these recipes, don't feel overwhelmed by the math. Like I feel like I get the math just because that's how my mind works. So some people get overwhelmed by it. There's so many resources online. I mean, your blog's a great one, of explaining these things, breaking these things down. It really is. Like there's people that care about this and care about sharing it. That can let you know, hey, this is what this type of stuff means, right? So 63% is basically the ratio. Everything in baking is to flour. So I'm just gonna. I want to taste the bread.
Why don't we do this? Why don't I make a pizza and you answer that question?
Yeah, that's a great idea. So
that one's towards you.
Yeah, so it's literally just this water to flour is, so this is 63% water to flour. I don't know who made the sauce.
Oh, someone made this from scratch? This is like a homemade sauce?
Yeah, we'll say it's a homemade sauce.
I think he made it. That's why he walked away laughing.
But yeah, so anyway, I say good pizza starts with good bread. So I treat my dough just like bread. I give it a rough mix. I let it sit for like an hour. I give it a first fold. I let it sit for like another half an hour. And then a few more folds after that. Folds, literally all you're doing is just, like you, hand laminating. You just got your laminator. But before that, hand laminating croissants is the same thing, right? You're just making layers. And then making layers. And then making layers. And that's all you're doing. It's the same thing with bread. You just, with pizza dough, you're just making layers and making layers and making layers.
So there's so many ways to do this. There's so many different ways to make dough, obviously. So another thing, you should keep in mind as we're answering these questions, everyone's going to have a different technique. Everyone's going to have a different kind of method of doing things. So don't feel like, if you're not using the method that I use or that he uses, it's not like you're doing anything wrong. If your dough doesn't come out looking like someone else's dough, always keep in mind that like it's your dough. Your dough is going to look how your dough is going to look. Like that, so
and you have pride in it at the end too, because you made it. It's cool. That's Florida latte and then fresh mozzarella.
You just handed it to me, so you want me to put this on there?
All right, I'll do it.
No, I got it.
Mike, Will asks, Mike, how are you enjoying the move to Ooni HQ in Scotland? How do you turn your sourdough starter into pizza dough? It's a great question. So I did just move to Scotland from California, and it's amazing. I've been trying to convince Brian all afternoon to move here. Not only Ooni, I'm not going to get like crazy into this, but Ooni is like a fantastic company. Like I uprooted my whole life and moved my family over here. I wouldn't have done it if I didn't believe in this company. So that's partly why I'm here.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
It's also, I heard that you might be coming over, and I was like, accept, take the role, move, get to meet Brian. So how do you turn sourdough starter into pizza dough? That's great. So sourdough starter, like we talked about, literally all it is flour and water. That's just it's had time to ferment. And you mix it with more flour and water, mix it with more flour and water. People ask, like, how do you feed sourdough? Sarah is asking, as in my wife, Sarah? Potentially, yes, my wife, perfect. Wow, I feel myself turning red. Anyway,
why did you take your wedding ring off?
Why did you take your wedding ring off? So anyway, it's just flour, water. It's having some time to ferment. When you feed sourdough, it's literally just feeding flour and water. That's it, flour, water, flour, water. You mix it with more flour, water, salt, and oil. That's literally it. That's how you make pizza dough. Like, there's some recipes you can follow. I do it 10% again by weight. Sourdough starter to flour. What's your typical? You do about 10%. What do you normally do? This is the thing I love about this dude though, because like he was like, oh yeah, let's feed some starter, and I was like, cool, I'll go grab a scale. He's like, what do you need a scale for?
Yeah, you're talking about how much seed do I mix with?
Yeah. So when you're making pizza dough, what percentage of starter to flour are you using?
Man, I pump it up 40%.
Really?
40%.
All right, see?
Pump it up, man.
This is
let
cool,
it work.
That's
let
what
it
I love
go.
about this, though.
You know what
It's
I'm saying?
like,
Let it. But for sure, everyone does it different. I definitely like. Oh, we're looking great.
Oh, nice.
We're gonna.
It's gonna shimmy off there.
Yeah,
I let that one sit for way too long.
Yeah. This is all your fault. So why don't you take over?
Oh, that's cool. Yeah,
I don't want to embarrass myself. No. Do it. All right, sweet. Did you answer Sarah's question yet?
What's your favorite thing to make with sourdough? That's a good question. It depends if my daughter's watching.
Coconut bread.
Yeah. Panda cocoa. I would have loved to make some panda cocoa.
Nah. What's your favorite thing to make with sourdough?
Is that really your favorite thing to make? I mean, I feel like that's you though.
Yeah, man.
That's your recipe.
It's panda cocoa is very amazing to make with sourdough. A lot of times when I make these enriched breads or these sweeter breads with sourdough, with my starter, people they ask a lot of questions about it, like how do you make something sweet? I thought it was supposed to be sour. Like, does it taste sweet? If I make a brioche or a babka, they're like, yo, does it taste sweet or is it sour? And these are beginning bakers. So my job really is to answer these questions and guide people through and say, no, it's not sour. You can make sweet breads with your starter. It's just a way to make your bread rise. So my favorite thing to make is usually like enriched sweet type breads, semitas, Honduran things, weird things, tortillas, pizza, obviously. It's hard to pick one favorite.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, besides pizza, because I love making pizza, my sourdough waffles are crazy. I love the sourdough waffles. We're looking on here. We're getting pretty close.
Yo, my man is crushing this bake right now. There's a question for you again from Julius.
Yeah.
What's going on, Julius? How's your day going? Mike.
Yeah.
Has your sourdough starter changed since you moved to a different climate?
Absolutely, it has. Absolutely, it has. So when I first got into sourdough, I took. Let's just flip this bad boy over. Look at that.
Oh,
Beautiful.
chapeau. Oh,
Beautiful.
do we actually have to eat this right?
Yeah.
We should probably cut it on that one.
Yeah. Go for it. When I moved to, when I was in Southern California, I went up to visit my wife's family in Northern California, and I made some bread for them, and I just got into making sourdough. And I swear, being there one day, it changed. And that's like, do you think that it changes that quickly? Some people have challenged me on that.
What do you mean, the flavor?
The flavor, absolutely.
I would say yes, it does. It changes in appearance and flavor.
Yeah.
I took my starter to Panama in Central America. That was probably the most adventurous place I've taken it. I gave it one feeding, and I will say, like, the home bakery I was helping out in was very hot. I mean, it was very hot in Panama.
Yeah.
Like, so I gave it one feeding, and it got nice and strong and ripe.
Yeah.
And I used it and made some banging bread. I mean, I didn't notice a change in the flavor of the bread.
Yeah.
I wasn't looking for it, though. I typically don't like to... I don't know. I guess I don't analyze things that much, Mike. I'm just like, yo, it worked. Did the bread taste good? Yeah, it tasted really good. All right, guys, I'm leaving. So that's pretty much how I do it.
Yeah, no, that's fair. Honestly, yes, though. I feel like it has changed. That was the question. I feel like it absolutely has changed from climate. Like, there's things that naturally that are floating in the air, natural yeast and bacteria. It's gonna get into your culture as soon as you move it. It's your starter, and it's gonna affect the flavor and how well it rises.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Change it. Humidity is going to change it. And that's the coolest thing though about this.
How does humidity change your? That's one question I get a lot being in Miami. And then it took me a while to really understand like how humidity is affecting the baking. And obviously, one of the biggest things is that moisture in the air kind of like seeps into everything you do. So I actually like to hydrate my starters not at 100%. Because sometimes I know that they're just going to randomly be wetter and a little bit hotter. Same with like dough mixes. Keep my water levels in the dough low because the humidity can kind of come in and wreak havoc.
Totally fair. I've noticed that being here too. It's not as warm as where I came from, but it's definitely more humid.
Right.
So I've had to adjust a little bit in my recipe.
Is humid out there?
It's crazy, right? Because humid to me means hot. It means like I'm sweating, I'm dying because it's so humid. Here it's just beautiful.
Can I eat?
Please.
Can I eat? Is it cool?
Ooh. Here we go. Yuka asks, can you use any kind of
What's up, Yuka?
Is this Yuka?
Like,
oh, what up?
What's good?
Hey.
I don't know you, but what's going on?
My guy.
Yuka.
Everything's going good, by the way, Yuka.
Yuka,
We're in
what's up?
good hands here.
Can you use any kind of flour? I love the name.
Yeah.
I love eating yuca. So it's like, can you use any kind of flour in your
starter? Yes. Here's what you don't, and correct me. We put some chilies on there, all right? I thought you can handle those. Those are pepperoncinis.
Get back to work. Let me recover. Let me recover.
I got you. What you're looking for specifically in the States, at least, I haven't noticed here. Look for unbleached. Unbleached flour is what you want to use, right? So,
well, you don't want bleach in your food, so
that's true.
Typically what I do. Unbleached flour.
Yeah, unbleached, yeah. So I use in Lucille, I feed with half bread flour and half whole wheat flour. It's called wholemeal flour here, and yeah, all unbleached flours.
Right.
If you can get organic flours, even better.
Even better. What about the specific berries? You know, like difference between using rye or using hard red winter wheat or even spelt. I will say that I've never used any gluten-free flours like rice flour, oat flour, coconut flour, almond flour, those kinds of things. If you want to call them flour, I guess, powdered stuff. I've never used that in my starter, although I know there is a pretty successful gluten-free sourdough baker out there. I'm not sure how that culture gets developed, but for these wheat or gluten-based culture, you got me saying cultures now. You got me sophisticated.
Sounded smarter.
For those, you can use anything: rye, wheat flour. I usually start my starters from scratch with rye flour. It's got that nice juicy bacteria on it, and it gets like super funky like really quick. You could also start one with whole wheat or white or pizza 00 flour, any flour. And then you can, when you're gonna go make bread or make dough, you can have a rye starter, but then you can make a leaven or another starter with a different flour, because you might want to have like a semolina bread or something. I've been playing around with semolina flour at work actually. Beautiful. So I've been doing like semolina in the starter. Just to get that like flavor from it.
Yeah. So I mean, really, what you're looking for in your starter, honestly, it's just getting good quality. And rye is really popular because rye definitely is a little more complex, and it gives you a little bit different base flour. When I was learning, everyone told me use rye.
Yeah, for sure.
And I think that's the easiest way to get a starter going is with rye.
I think the tricky part about using rye it becomes when you want to transition it into. Because like I would never use, or not to say never, but that 100% rye starter, I might not really want to use that when I'm making bread, when I'm making like a rustic country loaf or a white loaf or a wheat loaf, because it does tend to be a little bit denser and it does give you a little bit of a heavier end product. So you have to kind of transition that rye starter by feeding it, like once it's healthy, you start to feed it different types of flour to kind of get that lighter balance of texture.
Yeah.
So, next question.
Yeah.
Philip. What's good, Phil? How's it going, brother? Hope your day is great.
Is this Rosenthal, you think?
I don't know. It could be.
That'd be cool.
Yeah. Even if it's not Rosenthal, I respect you, Phil. I appreciate you.
That's a good
What's the best
point.
What's the best sourdough pizza dough you've ever eaten at? I have never eaten at a sourdough specific pizza joint. So I know you have. So I'll let you take.
Yeah, typically when I look for pizza places, I look for naturally fermented or something sourdough or something. Like I'll look and I'll do a little research.
He's high class.
I know how normal pizza makes me feel now. Like it just makes me feel, I don't know, like garbage.
Yeah.
So
like that deep fried pizza we had earlier.
Deep fried pizza.
So
best place around here. There's a place called. Can I drop pizza place names? Yeah, cool. There's a place called East Pizza in Edinburgh that I really enjoy. Met with the owner, super cool guy. We just chatted about sourdough. Like he really cares about it. How's the pizza, by the way?
The pizza is absolutely phenomenal. It is. So this is the Rosehill sourdough.
That is, yeah.
This is the best. Hey, Philip, to answer your question, this is the best sourdough pizzeria I've ever eaten at. It's at Ooni headquarters. It's called Rosehill Sourdough Pizza, and it's thebomb.com. You already know. So what you're saying though is that you like to seek out these sourdough pizza joints because it makes you feel better after you eat the pizza.
100%.
That's a pretty reasonable reason. Reason. I don't know about that English, guys. I'm sorry, but that makes sense. Kevin, what's going on, Kevin? Much respect, mad love. Kevin wants to know. You guys are legends. You guys are legends. What are those green things on your pizza?
What was that? Oh, that's put on there right now.
I think the green stuff that you just put right now.
That's sage.
Sage.
Yeah, that's sage. So I'm doing, I'm going to cut up this lime a little bit. I can't remember what I put on
He's
this
doing
one
a green pizza, guys. I think he's doing the green monster. That's what he got.
So I like just different stuff. Like, honestly, I'm a fan of white pies. White pies just is a very broad category. No tomato sauce.
Yeah.
Olive oil based instead of tomato sauce.
For sure.
I actually prefer white pies to tomato sauce pies. I hope my Italian relatives aren't spinning their graves right now with me saying that, but I just do. I prefer it. I think the tomato sauce a lot of times can overpower more delicate ingredients. And so specifically like in this, I'm using
beautiful.
Some sage, but I've also got feta. Sometimes I do goat cheese on here with a little mozzarella, and then I hit this with a little bit of honey. How's it look?
Oh, it's cooked to perfection.
Oh yeah, it looks really good.
Oh, it looks so good.
So this right here is sage, but I do a lot of. I love using cilantro, coriander. It's called coriander here, by the way.
Cilantro is called.
I've had a hard
coriander. I've heard of this.
I've had a hard time with that.
Mythical coriander.
Yeah,
I don't know what that is. But speaking of ingredients, this brings up a good, because I know we've got something over here that
bring it up.
Yeah,
bring it up. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about
this pineapple.
Yes.
How do you feel about pineapple on pizzas? And I think it's kind of silly that we even have to talk about this. Like,
why do we even talk about it?
Yeah, like why can't you just put whatever you want to put on a pizza?
I'm 100% agree with you.
Look, man, I'll put pineapple on pizza. I put beans on a pizza before, and it was really good, like black beans.
That's honey, by the way.
Honey?
That's honey. Try that.
I'm going to go ahead and try now.
No, honestly, yeah, absolutely. Pineapple, 100%. Hashtag Team Pineapple. I'm not afraid to say it. Absolutely 100% pineapple. Because if you're using it right, like what else? How's that?
This is amazing. This is so good. I'm sorry, Philip and Ken. I'm so sorry that he ain't here. You should be here. This is so good.
You like that one?
Yeah.
You can take that
You
one.
You used to sell this one, huh?
Yeah.
Damn, man, you had a good business. Hands down, the best sourdough pizzeria I've ever been to.
But I'm with you. Like I put cauliflower and carrot and curry on a pizza, and you're gonna tell me that's not a pizza? Like
that sounds like an amazing pizza.
It's a really good pizza.
Cauliflower, carrot, curry.
Yeah.
Man, I would tear it up.
Some cilantro, lime on top. Yeah, absolutely. Jalapenos. It's killer.
Ooni community. What's up, guys? Ooni community, y'all are the best. What's good? Ours and B, you already know. Your question is, would you recommend using a pre-ferment with your starter rather than using it direct, similar to how you would use levain with sourdough bread? I have to reread this in my head to make sure that I am understanding it.
I think I know what he's saying, but yeah.
Okay, why don't you take a stab at it?
So I think what's being asked. We mentioned a poolish earlier, and we said we were going to come back to it. Maybe
and we didn't.
Maybe a good time to come back to it. Yeah. So a pre-ferment.
What was it? Pre-ferment with your starter?
I know, with your starter. I don't
So I think
quite get that one.
So a pre-ferment. Let's just go over how we interpret.
We'll figure it out.
A pre-ferment. It could be a starter. It could be any form of basically pre-fermenting some flour before you put it into your final mix of dough. All right. That's the whole. That's why we're here. We like to pre-ferment flour into a starter. That's what we call a starter.
Yep.
And we don't add any fresh yeast or anything like that to it. Right. So that's our method. There are other types of pre-ferments though.
Yep.
You can make what's called a poolish, which is basically a tiny little spike of fresh or active yeast into flour and water of usually 100% hydration. So equal amount of flour, equal amount of water, spike of yeast, mix it up, put it on top of your fridge. In the morning you have this nice yeasty, fermenty, sticky, weird thing, and it is delicious. I'm not gonna lie. So that's one type of pre-ferment. Another, a biga, that's the other one that people always talk about. It's essentially a poolish that's less hydrated. Mm-hmm. It's just it's a stiff poolish basically. Yeah. Sorry, biga purists out there if I just like butchered.
That similar? I got a real question for you. Is that similar to like a pasta madre?
You talking about that thing that they cut in the? I'm not gonna lie, man. When I don't know what that is.
I don't know what that is either.
So let's not talk about it.
Right, Listen, do not use a pasta madre. You heard it here first. Ours and Brian, Rosehill sourdough.
I'm just kidding. Pasta madre, I got love for you, pasta madre. All right, so let me get back to the question. Would I use a pre-ferment with your? Oh, okay, yeah, I've done that many times. I've used like baguettes is a good example. Okay, when people want baguettes, they want a crispy, airy, light, long, crusty loaf of bread.
Yep.
And sometimes when you use only your sourdough starter, your baguette can be a little bit heavy. Look, man, I'm not gonna lie, not perfect. You know, sometimes you make this bread, it doesn't come out to be what it is supposed to be. That's like when you make sourdough croissants, it's very difficult.
Oh my gosh.
The dough is very, very hard to work with. You usually end up with something that's pretty dense. So that's not a croissant. People don't buy croissants for a dense biscuit-like thing, right? So people don't buy baguettes for a really tough to chew hard bread. So how do you get the benefits of using sourdough and the form of a baguette? Well, you can use a different pre-ferment like a poolish at the same time.
Yeah. I get what you're saying.
Because that little bit of instant yeast or fresh yeast really softens up and firms up the dough to where it's more workable. You can hydrate it more and not have any issues, and the texture comes out crispy and light just like a baguette should. So that, as I interpret the question, Ooni community, definitely you can use a different type of pre-ferment with your starter.
Yep. The more the merrier.
Yeah. The more the merrier.
Honestly, like you're just layering flavors at that point and texture.
Yeah. I saw a video the other day, not to get too far off topic, but I think it was a Tartine bakery. They put like leaven, poolish, fresh yeast, and all kind of stuff into like croissant dough or something. I was like, yo, why not just throw it all in?
Yeah. Each one of those is going to bring a little bit of a different something to the party for sure.
Cool. Laura is asking, what's up, Laura? What's good? Much respect.
Brian's live stream.
I've been making sourdough pizza, but the dough turns out too acidic. How can I solve this? Yeah. So we were talking about that. Yeah. That sometimes, so the first remedy usually to that is to use your starter when you're making the mix. Don't use it when it's too old. Mm-hmm. For a quick rundown, I guess we haven't really run down like the timing of like when to use your starter.
Yeah. So talk about refreshing.
You've made it. Too, yeah. You've used these flours that we talked about that you can use. At what point do you use it? After you mix it for you so that you can use. And there's stages. There's this naming convention of like a young leaven or a young starter or a mature starter. Yeah. Basically, if you mix your starter to make bread, and you come back in like 3 hours or 4 hours, and it's got like some nice strength to it, but it's not all the way bubbly and old, you can definitely use it there. And you're gonna get I find that you're gonna get a milder flavor from the sourdough starter itself. Yeah. So typically to remedy that problem, use it at a younger stage, earlier time frame. If you use it when it's a little bit old and bubbly, usually 12 hours after, you're definitely going to get that strong acidic flavor. A
couple other things you can do too is you can use less of your sourdough and let it ferment longer, which is a little counterintuitive, but because some people think, if I let it ferment longer, it's going to be more sour. It depends on how you ferment it.
Yeah, so that can totally happen as well. But again, it's all about timing basically. So what Mike is saying, you can use less of the starter in the dough, ferment it for a little bit longer, but then just be aware that by fermenting it longer, you can also develop that
especially if you cold ferment it.
Especially if you cold ferment.
Yeah, and then also last thing is you could refresh your starter by just taking a little bit out and feeding a ton of it, and that'll be less sour in general too.
All right, question from the computer mind. Okay. Question: is it hard to master sourdough pizza? Well, the word master is pretty.
It's a loaded question.
That's a strong. That's a strong. Is it hard to master?
Because I'm not going to claim to be a master.
Yeah, no, for sure. I'm not a master.
No.
I'm not. Honestly, I'm not a master. But is it hard to get really comfortable? When I think of mastering things, I think being comfortable with something enough to where you can do things off the top of your head and, kind of not use a scale sometimes when you're measuring, and being familiar with the dough so much that you know the result you're going to get. Yeah. No, I don't do it at work, guys. Let's not be confused. Like, I'm not out there running a bakery and not measuring things. Let's not be confused. Come on. But yeah, I think it just takes patience and time, just like with making good bread. When you first start, you're probably going to make something that's not what you wanted it to be. Most people have expectations going into this. If you have expectations, which you should, by the way, if you have expectations going into making bread because you've seen on Instagram these beautiful open loaves, or if you've seen Mike's amazing delicious pizza and me freaking out because it's so good, you have an expectation. So then what you want to do is master. You want to get better at it. So you just have to do it over and over again, fail a bunch of times, because failing is the best. You heard it here first. Failing is the best, because that's where that's your R&D. You get to learn. You get to start to experiment with things and try to figure out what you did wrong to make it better. So it just takes time and practice. Brian, we want to see you make a pizza.
Let's do it.
All right, I'll make another pizza. Let's, where's the dough at?
Right behind you. Right over there in those white bins.
All right.
Some dredging flour there.
You got a little thing to get it out. What have you been using? You've been doing the little Rosehill secret, huh?
Yeah.
The little Rosehill secret. Can I put it directly on that table?
If you want to. Yeah.
So, I'm fortunate to have been able to travel here and have someone like Mike who made amazing dough. So, kudos to him. This dough feels fantastic. I don't know. I'll just get into it. Like, I'm picking up the dough. It's got extensibility, but it's also, you can feel that it's a bit strong. The bubbles are very nice. It's gotten a long fermentation. Typically what I'll do is I'll kind of push the edges out here. All right. I'm gonna move this cheese. I'm gonna get a little bit more flour actually. You've probably been doing the same thing. I don't know what you've been doing. Then I'll kind of give it a little.
I've been eating.
I've been eating and choking on it. I'll give it a little stretch like that, and then I'll comically try to be a real Italian here. Give it a few of these. By a few, I mean a lot. All right. Then I'll get back at it like this. All right, until I've got my little circular shape here. And of course, Mike, you did a great job with this dough. It's very strong.
Thanks,
okay?
man.
You can tell a dough's gotten the right stretching or kneading when you can handle it with ease and it stretches out. So anyway, but I like to push the gas out to the corners so that I get a defined crust. And then I stretch it out, and then boom, I've got my nice little dough here. And let's make a pineapple pizza, guys.
Let's do it.
Straight pineapple, only pineapple.
That's it.
No, I don't know. Should we?
Sure.
Should we do that? Yeah, let's do that. This is for. I wonder if I'm gonna get hate mail over this.
Just
yeah,
pineapple.
I mean, let's do an only and honey.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah, let's put honey first.
What is it? Time?
Thyme? Honey, thyme. Yes, yes. I like the sound of that. I'm gonna put a nice drizzle of honey here. Mike's gonna pick some fresh thyme from our garden, okay? And I'm gonna take this pineapple and I'm going to crush it up. Nice knife skills, Mike. Went to culinary school.
Appreciate you. I toured one once.
Oh, okay. Pineapple. I mean, people like the pineapple ham thing.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. You got to have something savory and yeah, absolutely.
You think I should put? Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so we're gonna do pineapple honey. That's looking kind of gangster right there. And then we're gonna put, what is this?
Pepperonis. There's a little bit different.
Pepperoni.
Yeah. A little spiciness. That'll be nice.
Put some ronies on here.
Rounds.
Put some ronies up to the top of the donny. All right, that's good. And then the thyme.
Boom.
Oh, you don't.
Much as you want.
Bam. Emerald style, baby.
Boom. Get it.
Some thyme right there. All of it went into the same spot because I was
right.
trying to be cute. So that was not good.
That's my slice right there.
There we go. Yeah, man. Some pineapple, a little bit of pepperoni. Yeah, let's do it.
Why not?
Yeah, oh yeah, Brian got to do it. My bad. Brian's got to do it. Beautiful.
So we just showed a couple different techniques there. So I typically like to build on a wooden peel and retrieve on a metal peel. That's just because I've had a bad experience when I was learning to make pizza on trying to launch from metal peels. A lot of people get frustrated with pizza sticking to the peel. I feel like one of my top questions I get from people, how do I make it not stick? How do I make it not stick? First of all, you gotta have good dough.
You gotta have good dough.
You gotta have good dough. Second, this method, a lot of people like flouring the counter.
Absolutely. Flour is your
Pulling it
friend.
onto the
And
peel.
pull
then
it.
you don't have any time for it to stick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You don't have time for it to stick. Where'd my pizza go? No, I'm kidding.
So we're cooking today an Ooni Pro on gas. Brian just giving that thing a quick turn. This is of the Ooni lineup. What's your favorite oven that you cooked with, Brian?
The Ooni Pro, all day.
Honestly though, like it's a great
I
oven.
like the Ooni Pro mostly because since I'm a baker and I love bread, I get to also make bread in the Ooni Pro. I've talked about that many times. Let's get that dome.
Little dome.
Let's dome it up.
So in pizza making, what Brian's doing right now is bringing that pizza up to the dome, typically in like big big ovens. In big ovens, that's the hottest part of the oven is actually right at the top. That's where all the hot air's trapped. So you're just throwing it up at the top just to give it a little more color. Andrew's asking, why do people use rye flour to start and feed their sourdough starter?
Boom.
Such a good question.
I like that dark and crispy, baby.
Yes,
You already know.
Absolutely.
Beautiful.
You want to take this? Rye flour. Why do people use rye?
Why do people? So Andrew, what's going on, brother? Thank you for your question. I appreciate and respect you. Andrew's asking why do we use rye flour? We talked a little bit about that before. I believe rye berries they're loaded with different types of bacterias and it just gives an environment that's very conducive to the growth and fermentation of the flour when you start that culture. Yeah.
No, I really think that's it.
It's very potent.
Yeah.
I think of it like a very potent compared to white flour. If you use white flour, basically what's happened to that is that the bran and the germ and those good nutrient and bacteria-rich parts of the wheat berry have been removed. Whereas when you have that rye berry, not only is it already loaded up with that good stuff, that good nutrient-rich environment, it's not taken away from the berry. So when it's milled, you're getting all of that in your bag of flour. Even if it's from the grocery store, you still got that in there. So when you feed it, that wild yeast loves to come in there and just start eating it. And,
that's really what it is. Like rye is an easy one to do because you make sure you do have the whole part of the flour. So when it's growing and they pick that grain off, if they strip it open, just take the germ out. That's how we get white flour. You're leaving all that stuff behind where all the wild yeast and bacteria has been clinging onto. I think that's why mine worked so well feeding it with whole wheat flour to start. Same reason. Yeah. I got the whole wheat, right? I didn't just get the germ out of it.
But at the end of the day, I've made successful starters using only white flour, like bread flour. I've made successful starters with 0-0 pizza type flour. So don't be intimidated that you need to go buy rye flour or something like that if you don't have access to it, or if you can't find it, or if it's too expensive, because it can be expensive sometimes.
Yeah, true.
Go with some white flour, man. Make it happen. And on that note, we have another question from Kieran. What's good, Kieran? What's good? Thanks for the question. What's a good recipe for a new sourdough starter?
That's a good question.
So mine is super simple. 4 ounces or 100 grams of flour, 100 grams of water. Mix together, leave it on your countertop, covered, and do this at a time of day that you're not going to miss doing it. For example, when you wake up or right before you go to bed. And if you do it in the middle of the day, you might have a couple days where you forget about it because you're just busy. But right before bed, usually it's like brushing your teeth. You're gotta go feed my starter. We've all been there, right? You're like laying in bed and you have to like get up. Oh, I forgot to feed. Yeah. So
it's true.
Sure. Like one time I had to drive to work. So equal parts flour, water, mixed together on a countertop. Do that for 4 or 5 days, and you're gonna start to see a rise and fall. So Mike, I think it's time for us to wrap up, brother. It has been
that was so fun.
Absolute pleasure.
That was great
to be with Ooni here in Scotland, and with this dude here who's a pizza taste tester. You're awesome. I appreciate you.
I appreciate you.
Thank you, brother.
Thank you, guys.
Ooni, thank you guys for tuning in. Ooni community, all you people, Kieran, Philip, everybody, whole team. Mad love.
Phil. My guy, Phil.
My guy, Phil.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, guys.
All right. Hey, you want to try? We got to try that.